How short do you think he is? Okay. Yeah, but a lot of times those are the ones that get. I told Adam when I met him in Chicago, I was like, dude, if you lifted, you'd be a behemoth.
So one, that is true. Two, Arnold Schwarzenegger is 6'2", Jordan.
He didn't shrink.
He didn't shrink half a foot.
5'7" though. Wait, hold on. Now. See,
Do you have him confused with RFK?
Well, you know what? That's also, it's like, you're, yeah. Wait, how tall? 6'2"?
He's 6'2".
I guess, yeah, those like Mr. What is it, Mr. Olympic? Mr. Olympia? Like, they probably have to have some height to him because it's completely aesthetic. Like, Chris Bumstead's over 6 foot. And that, do you know who that is?
No.
Dude, look how Chris Bumstead.
What is it? Chris what?
Bumstead, Bumstad. I think he's like a
Yeah, I found it. Canadian bodybuilder.
like Mr. Olympia 4 or 5 times running or something insane. Absolute monster.
He looks like an uncooked steak.
His lats have lats though.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, 6'1". So you remember Ronnie Coleman though, right?
No.
Really?
The only bodybuilder I could name is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay. Ronnie Coleman was the goat of all goats. The black dude, you have to know Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, I just Googled him and like vaguely know who you're talking about, but I couldn't have told you what he looked like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's the best, man. He's still around today, but he's just like his whole body is destroyed from all of this. One of the coolest dudes ever, though. All right. Anyway, what's going on, everybody? How bad are we lagging? Like, can I do the show?
Never happens with Mike, Jordan.
No, Mike's microphone just doesn't work, so we don't know what's going on.
Right. Or it does work and he just starts talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, should I go? Yeah, but I went into like a deep rabbit hole and all that stuff one day. You know, like effects of steroid use long term and all this stuff, and started digging into all these crazy bodybuilders. Holy shit, dude.
Sean B said Arnold is 6'1", not 6'2". But
my
point,
he's not 5'7", is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if people could hear Jordan. Jordan, this conversation started because he said he was 5'7" or 5'8". He's listed 6'2". I assume he's like 6 foot, but not 5'8".
He looked that short though in the gym. Did you meet him? Did you say hi?
Maybe his bodyguard was just like 6'8", and
yeah, that could be it. That could be it. Just all perception. Anyway, I think we seem okay. Right? I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna go because yeah. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com MLB Deeper Dive. Only a 3-game slate today. Of course, today's show as well. Prize Picks. You get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. First match deposit bonus up to $100. And I'll tell you in a little bit, but this is the last day that you can get the free square on Patrick Mahomes over a half a passing yard for week 1. Yo, you can already put together some fun NFL cards over there at Prize Picks. We'll talk about it later on in this one. You got Live Before Lock coming up after this. It's a 640 lock. So Adam and I are going to go to like 550. Turn this one over to Greg and Eric after that, but happy to have you guys with us. Hit the thumbs up. You haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Actually, don't. It's Live Before Lock. There's no shelf life. But subscribe to the channel. Atone for your sins and hit that thumbs up. What's going on, dude? Oh, by the way, Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. Follow me at Lafayette_D. What's up, man?
Not much. 3-game slate, so should be a different type of show.
How'd the early slate go for you, or going for you?
Shitty.
Yeah.
It was looking a little bit better before the Braves started scoring. I had a lot of Arizona who came through late. I had a decent amount of the White Sox who were scoring. I didn't have a ton of Giants, so it was looking decent, and then the Braves just ruined it.
Yeah, it happens. Well, you got a chance on a 3-gamer to get it back. Got a shot here. Well, only 3 games, like I said, so not a whole lot happening. Is there anyone that's tuning in right now, Adam, like onto the stream, they haven't looked at any tools, they haven't consumed any information, any research? Are there any clear-cut number one, far and away top pitcher or top stack options for this slate before we dive in?
Sort of. In terms of projection, yes. In terms of what you should be playing, not necessarily, because of it being a 3-game slate. It's just, with it being such a short slate, ownership becomes a really big deal and leverage becomes a really big deal. So like Tyler Glasnow was clearly the top pitcher on the slate, 55% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher, but he's also projected for 74% ownership. So it's kind of 2 different answers. Yes, Glasnow is clearly the number 1 pitcher. Is he the best play in large field tournaments? Not necessarily. And as far as stacks go, Houston, 28% chance of being the top stack. Next highest is 18%. So same kind of thing. Houston is clearly, in terms of projection, your top stack, but it's also a 3-game slate. And you're trying to win tournaments, not be right the most often.
All right, so then you know what? That actually does add some interesting nuance into a slate like this for sure.
Yeah, my Sims video today was definitely the most like strategy intensive video I've done, because there wasn't a ton to talk about as far as different players showing up, since there's only 6 teams, but it was definitely a lot of like, well, I don't feel good about doing this, but it makes sense in terms of giving yourself a chance to get first place in a tournament as opposed to a chance to feel good while you min cash.
What did the highest Sims ROI lineups look like in the sim when you ran it?
Hogan Harris and the Orioles.
It was?
So like the lowest probability plays on the slate.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. Okay. How much of that are you comfortable with?
As much as I get.
Yeah. I guess it really doesn't matter at this point, but we'll talk about all of it. You've got 3 games today and only 6 pitchers to talk about, only 6 teams. So like you said, there's going to be nuance, and the best projected options are not always going to be the best overall options. Glasnow, dude, 74% ownership right now on DraftKings is where we haven't projected. So yeah, it's a 2-pitcher site. I mean, is it plausible to get away from him a lot on a 2-pitcher site?
Yes. So like, I don't mean this as in he's a bad play or you should be getting away from him.
Sure.
It's certainly plausible though. In the Sims video I did, which again, it was at like 2:00 this afternoon, lineups hadn't come out yet or anything, but I got to like 30% Glasnow and a ton of Orioles. And it's just, again, like you can certainly make the case for just jamming Glasnow in. He's the best pitcher on the slate. Assume he pitches well, and you can find other spots to be different. But when especially talking about large field tournaments, there's definitely the case to be made where there's just you're not going to have good lineups as often if you get away from Glasnow, but you're going to get paid off better when you do have those good lineups. So it's it's a trade-off.
Oh man, this is awesome. Sean V, I love you, but this is hilarious. He said, I met Arnold at his house in Brentwood. Let's assume it's true. I'm 6 foot and he was an inch taller than me. He's 6'1". So that's how he came to him being 6'1".
Yeah, that is a very, very precise measurement there. Like,
yeah, scientific.
The fact that he is so confident he can discern 1 inch from 2, that he is arguing he's not 6'2", he's exactly 6'1", that's what I mean. Is amazing.
What if they got back to back? You know how like you measure up against someone and you just go back to back?
Yeah, but like
and then you go like this.
Right. Yeah. Maybe he marked it off on the wall, like Sean Arnold.
Yeah, March 16th, 2019. Anyway, let's dive into this one. We'll start it with Baltimore and Tampa Bay. That's a pretty good spot to start since we've been talking about this already. Jordan, I'm not sending. Let me move this a little bit. If you need to fix that, fine. But that better? I think that's better. Yeah. Yeah. That looks better that's better. I know that's better. All right. Baltimore and Tampa. So Baltimore plus 160 on the money line here. 8-run implied total. We'll get to Glasnow in a second, but I guess we have to start it off with Kyle Gibson on the other side because he's not getting a ton of ownership. It's not a great matchup, particularly against the Tampa team that, they can smash both-handed pitchers, but they do some damage to righties. He's only 17% owned at $7,200, which kind of, in a sense, speaks volume when you only have 5 other pitchers to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, he's not very good, and so he doesn't project as well as somebody like Glasnow by any stretch, but it still stands out as a spot where you can use him as a contrarian play. 17% ownership, 27 to 28% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. And that number really just tells you or reminds you there's only 6 pitchers on the slate. So 1/3 of them are going to be a top 2 pitcher, excluding relievers, I guess. But there's still just so much variance in baseball. He doesn't project that well. Right now, we have him projected as the 5th highest scoring pitcher, only ahead of Harris. But every pitcher on this slate, other than Glasnow, projects between 11.5 and 14.7 DraftKings points. Glasnow is very far ahead of all of them, but he is going a little bit under-owned. He's somebody where you can use him to be contrarian, but he's not somebody where you're pointing to anything and saying like, hey, I think Gibson is likely to have success here, because he's not. Tampa Bay is a very good offense. Gibson only has a 20% strikeout percentage against righties, 16.7% to lefties, 182 expected ISO to righties, 341 expected WOBA, 156 and 329 respectively to lefties, 4.3 implied run total for the Rays. There's nothing about Gibson that draws you to him other than I need to find a way to beat thousands of people in a tournament.
Strictly a leverage play and nothing else.
Yeah,
the funny thing about slates like this too is usually when you've got guys that are so low owned on an abbreviated slate is that they are going to they're going to have positive leverage. It's not like super low ownership on a 12-game slate where they're really not positively leveraged at all because there's so many other pitchers to choose from and they're just objectively a bad play. Like at least with a Gibson, and I know this isn't what you're doing, like you're not advocating to run out a ton of Gibson, but at least with Gibson and Harris and essentially any of these guys, just the fact that, the top 2 pitcher probability is much higher than their ownership, and Glasnow is extraordinarily popular, but still 55% top 2 pitcher probability leaves a 45% chance that he isn't, despite being 74% owned. There's always an argument to be made for these cheaper low owned pitchers on these slates.
Yeah, exactly. And where it really stands out, looking at the top stacks tool or top pitchers tool, rather, obviously we've talked a lot about Glasnow already, but where it really stands out is compared to the other non-Glasnow pitchers. JP France is $800 more expensive than Gibson on DraftKings. France has a 31% chance of being the top 2 scoring pitcher. Gibson's at 28%, but France is getting more than double the ownership. Similarly for Steven Matz. Now he is $1,000 less expensive, but 28% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So about the same as Gibson, getting 28% ownership instead of 17. So that's where I think it really stands out, especially compared to France.
Hey, let me ask you this, because there's plenty of people that hand build in the community that watch these shows. It's a lot easier to get to these type of pitchers when you're not hand building because you accept what you've been given, right?
I think it's one big advantage to not hand building.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's also an advantage of the, like, if you're not having as intricate process as you do, but like the MLB lineup generator is the same thing in essence. Like it gives you lineups that shows you the optimal projection. It shows you how chalky or contrarian they are. Sure, you can swap players and lock players, but like you set your stack types, you run your lineups, you upload them to CSV, you save the ones you like, you discard the ones you don't, but it's giving you those lineups and you don't have to get in the way of certain things. I think is even more important on a slate like today, where it's so hard. And by the way, 50% off the first week. It's $4.48 for your first week. Jordan can throw the shots up there. Massive winners lately using the lineup generator. Dude's paying less than $4.50, less than $5 a week, and hitting big. But you know what I'm saying in the sense that, like, it's so much harder to pull the trigger manually on Hogan Harris and Kyle Gibson. So how do you do it if you're hand building?
Right. And the other, to your point about the lineup generator and also the Sims tool, if you're playing higher stakes and using that, is that it's also telling you like, hey, this is a plus EV lineup. You might throw up when you look at it, but it's a profitable lineup. And I mean, that's, people ask about hand building a lot and there is enjoyment in it. I get that. Like I enjoy hand building too, but one of the best things I think you can do in DFS is take your biases out of it. And the easiest way to do that is by having a process that isn't you having to click on Kyle Gibson's name. And so that's a big part of it. I think if you were using a process that is just strictly going by numbers and has no idea who the hell Kyle Gibson is, he's going to show up more than if you're somebody that is forcing yourself to actually click his name, because it's really hard to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Tyler Glasnow on the other side of this game. You're talking about a pitcher that has a 35% strikeout rate this season. I mean, he's just been spectacular. When the guy's not injured, he's great. Last year, 38.5% K rate, 36% K rate the year before that, 38 before that. Strikes out more than a third of the batters he faces. Now we just got to talk a little bit of game theory here. You got into it a little bit at the top of the show, talking about what the Sims spit out. My assumption too is the lineup generator on, plays that project well optimally is also going to give you a lot of other alternative pitchers here. What is the best way to approach Glasnow on a slate like today? Not just, you play him or you don't play him, but is there any nuance to this at his ownership and top 2 probability?
It's really just, are you able to be different enough elsewhere in your lineup if you play him? Because 74% ownership is a ton of ownership. And the other thing to keep in mind, he's far and away the best pitcher on this slate. He does not have an easy matchup tonight against Baltimore. This is a good offense. They still only have a 3.2 implied run total, but that's just because Glasnow is so good. They are still a tough matchup. So it really just comes down to, are you able to find ways to be different elsewhere? Because ideally, you do play a lot of Glasnow. He projects like 6 points higher than any other pitcher on the slate. He has a 35% strikeout percentage, 2.83 xFIP. The problem just becomes, what are you doing to be different? And the big problem is that if you look at the top stacks tool, you look at the offenses, Houston, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, and the Cubs are all projected for between 17 and 26% aggregate ownership. So if you're looking for a low-owned offense, that leaves you with Baltimore and Oakland. Baltimore is facing Glasnow. So you are either basically just playing a ton of Glasnow plus Oakland, or you're playing a lot of lineups that are going to be very, not necessarily duplicated, but there's going to be a lot of overlap. Glasnow, even if you're not going to the Astros, Glasnow St. Louis, Glasnow Tampa, Glasnow Cubs. These are all going to be very, very, very popular combinations. So I think that's why when I did my Sims video, I was getting a lot of Orioles and not Glasnow. Is that kind of is the easiest way to really be contrarian on this slate. Say, look, it's not going to happen very often, but I'm going to get paid more money when the Orioles have a good game and I'm on them than when Glasnow has a good game and I'm on him. Now, if you can find ways to be different, by all means, play Glasnow. He's a great individual play. And we harp on it a lot that you should be paying attention to the overall construction and ownership of your lineup, not of an individual player. It's just that on a 3-game slate, it becomes so much more difficult to find low-owned guys to go with that 74% owned Glasnow.
You make a great point. Yeah. It's like usually you have 2 options. You can fade the pitcher to be different, or you can play the pitcher and play different variations of hitters. But the different variations of hitters is difficult to get different with, even if you are playing Glasnow.
Right. Like, I view it completely the opposite of what Sean Fee just said. He said, it's only 3 games. That's the only thing that's leading me to chalk donkey Glasnow. If this were a 10-game slate, but every pitcher projected in this like 11 to 14 point range except Glasnow, I would have no issue just playing like 100% Glasnow, and I would have access to all of these different stacks that are relatively low owned that I can use to offset it. But with it being a 3-game slate, those stacks don't exist. So it becomes a little bit easier to just say, all right, let's hope that Glasnow just doesn't have a good start.
Yeah. What do you want to do with the bats on both sides? I guess we can kick it off with the Tampa side. 18% aggregate ownership here, 17% top stack probability. Looking at the top stacks tool, some slight negative leverage. Not sure how much that matters here, but of course, Houston, very popular. Outside of that, though, ownership, it's, there's 3 teams grouped together between like 18 and 20%. And then you have a couple that are just very under-owned. One of those, Adam, is Baltimore, and you already alluded to that. 8% aggregate ownership, 11% top stack probability. So it still is a positively leveraged spot here against not even factoring in the 74% Glasnow ownership.
Yeah, exactly. And, so starting with the Tampa side, they're obviously more likely to succeed. They have the better matchup against Gibson. 3rd in top stack percentage at 17%. 18% aggregate ownership. So ownership is more or less where it should be. They are relatively expensive, but I was getting around the field on them, I think, in my Sims video. It's a good spot. I don't see any reason to just like be jamming in Tampa over some of the other teams around them. I don't see any reason to be heavily fading them. They just look pretty much correctly owned. Baltimore is the really interesting spot. They're coming in under-owned because Glasnow is so good and people are going to play Glasnow. 11% chance of being the top stacked, 8% ownership. Looking at them individually, Gunnar Henderson's projected for 14.5% ownership on DraftKings. Rutschman's at about 11%. Santander is at 9.5%. Nobody else is 7% or more on a 3-game slate. And this is an offense with really good hitters. Now, you do have Jorge Mateo in the lineup, who's not a good hitter. He does have speed, but it's a relatively weak version of the O's lineup because of Cedric Mullins being on the injured list. But Henderson, well above average hitter. Rutschman, well above average. Santander, well above average. O'Hearn, at least this year, well above average. Hayes, well above average. Hicks, since he joined the Orioles, at least, well above average. Like, it's a very good team that just isn't getting ownership. And so it really just comes back to, you have to remember that when you're playing DFS, you're not trying to predict the future and say what you think is going to happen. I think it's much more likely Tyler Glasnow shuts down the Orioles than that the Orioles have a good game against Glasnow. You're trying to make as much money as you can. And you're going to make more money being on the Orioles if they do well than you are being on Glasnow if they do well. So, or if he does well. So it really just comes down to the probabilities of how often are these teams going to do well and how much am I going to get rewarded? And that's where the top stacks tool comes in, where it's saying that we project the Orioles to be the highest scoring team 11% of the time. So 89% of the time, you're not on the highest scoring team. And a large percentage of that time, some of that time, the Orioles are still second best and they, still do well against Glasnow. But a lot of that 89%, they're going to suck. And those lineups you've made are going to suck. But that 11% of the time, you're only competing with like 8% of the field. So it looks like a profitable stack.
All right. So how about this? We're talking about leverage spots and all of this. Normally you wouldn't consider this, but in football, I love some of the afternoon slates. I love nothing more than, I know you enjoy these too, but remember they used to, every week one, you'd have the doubleheader Monday Night Football. That was the best, right? I love those 2-game slates, but I had no hesitation running guys out against the defense that I had. You see where I'm going with this.
Yep.
How willing are you? Maybe not just with Glasnow, but in general on this slate. But I think it's specifically pertinent to Glasnow, maybe to get different, to run out 1 or potentially 2 Oriole bats against him, given that he does have a 230 plus expected ISO against lefties and righties this season, which just makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, so in general, on 3-game slates, I'm willing to play a hitter against my pitcher. Earlier in the year, I was doing 2. And then as I started looking at my lineups, I kind of just realized that even on a 3-game slate, I could typically find guys not facing my pitcher that projected very similarly to that second guy. So definitely comfortable with 1. In the case of Glasnow, I don't think it's a horrible idea to go with like 2, because it is one way that you can play Glasnow and be different. Like I was talking about before, you have 4 stacks that are getting plenty of ownership, and that leaves you Baltimore and Oakland as your ways to differentiate as far as stacks go. Playing a couple of hitters against Glasnow is going to be different than most people are doing, and it can work out relatively easily because Glasnow is such a good strikeout pitcher, and he's such a better strikeout pitcher than anybody else on the slate. It's not hard for like Glasnow to give up 2 home runs and still strike out 8 guys and be the highest scoring pitcher. So for that reason, I don't mind going to 2 on the Orioles. Also, specifically Gunnar Henderson. Glasnow's never been good at holding runners. Henderson can absolutely fly. If he gets on base, I'd expect him to take advantage of Glasnow. You could see Hayes run a bit as well, but Henderson's really the one that stands out where I really like him even in Glasnow lineups.
Look at Strider from today. Gave up 2 home runs.
So that's another path. Strider scored 27 points, gave up 2 home runs. The Diamondbacks for a while were looking like they were going to be the best stack, but it also doesn't even have to come against him. Like you do have the Glasnow goes 6 innings, the Orioles do nothing, and then the Orioles hit 3 home runs against the bullpen angle. It's not going to happen a lot, but
for sure
happens enough.
Yeah, for sure. It's also possible that like No other pitchers are good.
Right. Yeah, and that's sort of what I was getting to as well. Like you could like I don't want to go too overboard. I don't intend on like 3-man stacking against my pitcher or anything.
I get it. Yeah.
But it's completely conceivable that like Gunnar Henderson hits a home run, even if they're not solo shots. Let's say Henderson hits a 2-run shot, Santander hits a 2-run shot, Glasnow gives up 4 earned runs. If he still strikes out 10 guys, he is most likely the highest scoring pitcher on this slate because the next highest strikeout percentage of anybody pitching tonight is Steven Matz at 21.7% and Stroman at 21.3%. There's not strikeout pitchers on this slate outside of Glasnow.
No, not at all. By the way, Tyler Glasnow, striking resemblance to Cillian Murphy.
Who?
Peaky Blinders.
Haven't seen it.
That is wild. And it's funny because I see this, I look at his picture and I'm like, man.
Oh, that's why I recognize it. He's in Oppenheimer.
Yes, he's
so I didn't know what he looked. I didn't know what he looked like, but once I typed the name in and saw it,
that's him. Is that out yet?
I think tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to see.
You're right. I just looked up pictures of them both.
Don't they look? It's crazy. Yeah. So I see it and I'm like, let me Google search Cillian Murphy, Tyler, see if I'm the only one to have noticed this. GQ, an article from 6 days ago, a guide to telling the difference between Tampa Bay Rays pitcher Tyler Murphy Glasnow and Oppenheimer star Cillian Murphy 6 days ago.
And it's really crazy because like they are not normal looking people.
No, it's like the
opposite of you. Like I have found like 42 different people that I think you look like.
None.
At least in some way. But like not like a spitting image of any of them, but like it's like, oh well, this
resemblance.
Yeah, this resembles them. Nobody looks like these guys.
I look at these guys as
they're aliens.
They're alien. They're handsome fellas, but if they were heroin addicts, they would be nothing but skin and bones.
Right.
Like they kind of look skeletal in a way, right?
I'm not positive they're not heroin addicts.
I don't think Glasnow is. But yeah, they have that.
He's got to do something during all that time on the injured list.
Yeah, that is wild, man. The same exact nose too. Maybe it's
it is pretty crazy.
I know. I looked at the picture of him and I go, man, that like I can't be the only one to have thought this. And then there's an article from 6 days ago. That's crazy. I'm not going to see Oppenheimer I'm going to see Barbie in the theaters tomorrow.
You're not doing both? Isn't that the thing that everybody's doing?
Yeah, I'm joking. I'm not going to see Barbie.
I thought maybe you were taking a daughter or something.
No, she's too young. I bet that crushes though. I bet it crushes in the box.
Yeah, because it's got the nostalgia effect. It's got actors that you want to see, whether you're going for Ryan Gosling or Margot Robbie.
Yeah, Margot Robbie, just total smoke show.
Yeah,
Ryan Gosling, striking fella as well.
And somebody that I actually enjoy like most of his movies.
Yeah, dude, Place Beyond the Pines. You ever see that?
I haven't seen it, no.
Sick. He's done some great movies though.
But the fake the people acting like Margot Robbie's not incredibly attractive for attention on Twitter for the last like month has
that been a thing?
Yeah, mildly annoying. Yeah, you get the people saying like, oh, she's not that hot. And then you have the people like ridiculing them for saying she's not that hot.
Dude, she's so hot.
Yeah, it's insane.
There's no way. I just pulled this. There's no way anyone outside of just trying to get clout or to be different, contrarian, actually thinks that. I don't think it's actually possible.
No, it's the only way you think that is
if you don't like ladies.
Well, I wasn't even going to say
but
that.
Not even that though. No, that's an unfair. That's
no. I was going to say I was going to say you have to just have a completely different type. Like I don't like dudes, but I am fully aware Ryan Gosling is attractive.
That's why exactly why I just changed my tone. I was like, yeah, it's a striking fella. Right. Like you see what you see.
Right. Like you're either just being contrarian or you just like really, really have a very different type that you are just like dead set on.
Yeah, but even so, you still go, yeah.
Right.
That's nice.
Yeah, like she is just objectively attractive.
Yeah. Anything else for I think we covered a lot, but Tampa and Baltimore, anything else?
Somebody asked for FanDuel single entry. I mean, for the most part, stuff is going to carry over between sites, and that's why we just focus on the one. But their night slate, it looks like, doesn't even have the Orioles game, I guess.
Oh, did they go 7 lock?
At least according to our top stacks tool, it looks like it.
Hold on, let me log in real quick. Just see.
No, it says. Yes, I'm trying to see now because I'm seeing two different things.
I'll tell you, I had to put in the 2-factor.
No, it has all three, so I don't.
It does?
know. Yeah, maybe I just clicked the wrong tab.
FanDuel 9. Yeah, so you got to go to FanDuel late instead of FanDuel night.
Oh, okay.
You see it?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
So that's what it looks very similar to what we were just talking about with DraftKings. Baltimore and Oakland are the two stacks not getting much ownership. The only difference is that with it being a one pitcher site, you'll probably have a little bit less ownership, raw ownership coming into Glass now, but he's still far and away going to be the most popular pitcher. We have him on FanDuel at, where is he? Okay, he's not in our ownership right now, but late. So we have him at 56.5%. So that's lower than 74% on DraftKings since it's only one pitcher, but it's the same kind of thing. You're talking about a pitcher that is over 50% owned. You're talking about a very low owned Orioles team. So things generally translate from site to site, and the strategy here is the same kind of thing.
Funny, dude. Usually chat always has, like, we say one thing and a lot of chat agrees and half of them disagree. Everybody, and no, whoever said that, I did not. I'm not a ghostwriter for GQ. Every person in chat agreed that both Tyler Glasnow looks like Cillian Murphy and that Margot Robbie as a smoke show.
Yeah,
nobody disagreed, not a single person.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that because this is the same chat that like 50% of them said they wouldn't hook up with Kim K.
Yeah, she doesn't do it for me even remotely. Would I hook up with her? I mean, Kim Kardashian?
Yeah.
You want to talk about not my type?
Sure. But okay, you were going to say it, though. You'd still hook up with her.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
right.
My standards aren't as high as they used to be. No,
there's no point in your life that your standards were that high.
What's that?
There's no point in your life that your standards were that high.
Dude, are you kidding me?
You have to remember she was 10 years younger too.
Oh, wait, you're talking, there's no point that my standards were Kim Kardashian high?
Yes. There's no point that your standards were like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to leave that alone.
Oh, of course. No. Yeah. No. But you have like a thing for her. It doesn't, I don't
have a thing for her. I think
you do. That's always your first example of like a hot chick. Always. You always go to Kim K.
Yeah.
You do.
It's always my first example of one of the dumbest things YouTube chat has said.
I know, but you always go to her. I'm just saying, that's your girl.
When have I ever gone to her?
I don't know. I like Courtney over Kim.
I couldn't tell the difference. I could tell the difference, but I don't know what they look like.
Anyway, St. Louis and Chicago. But no, of course I wouldn't pass. Of course not. But I was just saying as far as, type goes. But anyway, talk about this one with me here. St. Louis and Chicago. By the way, hit that thumbs up if you guys haven't done so yet. What are we at, 58? I know it's a light slate tonight, but 58, maybe we get to 100. Possible. I don't know. If you guys are in a good mood, maybe we can make this happen. We're having a heck of a fun show. I can tell you, if nothing else, we're having a good time. But I do think that the information already from a game theory standpoint has been pretty valuable. Marcus Stroman, 30% ownership on DraftKings right now, 35% top two probability. And then we've got who's on the other side of this one? France, Steven Matz. 28%.
Yeah,
What's up?
Stroman and Matz.
Yeah, Stroman and Matz. Yeah. 28%, no real leverage there, 28% ownership. I'm not asking you questions of do you like these guys? It's more so how do we approach these two pitchers today?
Yeah, I think that they're both just guys that I probably get around the field on. at least the approach that I'm likely to take based on how the Sims tool looked earlier. I haven't built my lineups yet for tonight, but based on how it was looking earlier, I was taking an approach where I was basically taking a stand against the two most popular spots, Glassnow and the Astros, and then getting around the field on most mid-range stuff, and then getting over the field on the pieces that negatively correlated with the most popular plays. So I was getting around the field on the Cubs. I was getting around the field on the Cards. I was getting around the field on Stroman and Matz. I do like the matchup, or I like the lineup here for Stroman. It's still not an easy matchup in terms of strikeouts. The Cardinals do have good hitters, but they do have 6 right-handed bats in this lineup. He has a 24% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 293 expected WOBA, 110 expected ISO. He hasn't given up power to lefties either, but he's only struck them out 19% of the time. So I do like the extra right-handed batter too that, adds to Stroman's strikeout upside. As far as Matz goes, he's really cheap, doesn't give up a lot of power, 111 expected ISO to lefties, 145 to righties, 21 to 22% strikeout percentage against both sides of the plate. So they both look like pretty good pitchers. And the ownership isn't overly concerning.
From a hitting perspective here, just pulling up the top stacks tool, you guys know this already too. Everything's 50% off. We talk about the top stacks, top pitchers tool, ownership, player projections. Not just that though, like MMA, NASCAR. If you got in earlier this week, you got all the PGA tools, PGA Top Golfer tool, ownership, projections, and everything for the big Open. All of that stuff, all the sports across the board. NASCAR, you got football coming up. Your first week or your first month are 50% off, half off everything. If you're looking to dive in on that and get access to the preeminent, the best tools, the Margot Robbie of tools in the DFS game. Plus the lineup generators are included for PGA and MLB, the premium Discord. And if you want to get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you can do that as well. Sky's the limit, my friends, but for real, 50% off, one sport, all sport, 1 week, entire month, doesn't matter. We got you covered. Link in the description and in chat. Take half off the top when you sign up for the first time. And come say hi in Discord if you haven't done so yet and join the community. Okay, so bats here. Top stack probability. I mentioned this earlier, but it was, Houston at the top by far. And then everything's pretty flat outside of Oakland, Adam, like all things considered. St. Louis, 19%, Chicago, 16%, similar ownership here. Any sneaky ways to play this?
I don't really think so here. It just looks like spots that I'll probably be around the field. I don't think that either of the pitchers and I don't think either of the offenses are really going under-owned, over-owned. They're kind of just where they should be. And so it kind of goes back though to how you're approaching this slate. Like for me, if I am, like I was earlier at least, if I am under the field on Houston, under the field on Glassnow, over the field on Harris, over the field on the O's, there's no reason for me to then also be like, well, I'm going to just jam the A's in instead of the Cardinals and the Cubs. Like at that point, I'm just lighting money on fire. So it kind of comes back to what your approach is. If you're playing a lot of Glassnow, maybe you do end up getting under on Houston or on the Cardinals and Cubs, playing more Oakland. Or if you're playing a lot of Houston, maybe you end up mixing in more, Baltimore 2-mans, Oakland 2-mans, as opposed to Cubs and Cardinals. So it all goes hand in hand on a slate like this with what else you're doing. But the way I see the slate, I expect to be around the field on both offenses.
Okay. Yeah. Man, Roberts says Stroman is like batting practice. Wonder if the winds are blowing out. Listen, man.
That might be worse than the Kim K take.
It might be.
Stroman's like one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball.
I was going to say he might be the best. He might be the best ground ball pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, 3.71 xFIP, less than half a home run per 9.
58% ground ball rate.
Yeah, 0.46 home runs per 9. Not sure when the last time you watched batting practices, but
I mean, he's great batting practice if his infielders need to field some one-hops.
Right, yeah. He throws his own pitcher fielding practice in spring training.
Yeah. No, dude, listen, don't get it twisted with Stroman. He might not be the best strikeout pitcher. He's not, but a heck of a lot of that is by design. 21% K rate's like league average.
Yeah, and it's 24% against righties.
Which is above league average, yeah. He's an objectively good pitcher. So there's that. You drinking coffee almost 6 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
Yeah. You fall asleep fine? I forget
No,
you. I forgot you don't fall asleep till 3 a.m. anyway.
yeah, I'll regret it. I was laying in bed last night at like 1:30. I was like, man, it was actually probably closer to 2 because I had just made golf lineups. I'm like, man, why am I still like not really tired? And then I remembered that I drank like half a cup of coffee on Deeper Dive, so probably
Yeah.
was why. But
Yep. Steve, yeah, the lineup generator should have all slates for NFL for sure. It's got the sick showdown format. I don't know if you've used it before, but the NFL one's got the showdown where you can adjust the game script. Like you can adjust how you think the game is going to go, and it gives you lineups for showdown that are catered to how you think the game's going to play out. Really cool. I can't wait for football, as you've already known. Also, if you're on Twitter, I'm going to throw a link out there later tonight. Get some underdog drafts in with you guys. Maybe we'll do like $10 winner take all 12 mans. If anyone is interested, let me know in chat too, and we'll get that in there. If you're not on underdog yet, hit me up. But I would love to do that. Get some underdog drafts in for sure. We did a bunch of them last year. It was a lot of fun. Any other bats you want to talk about here?
there's nothing really specifically. I mean, Stroman doesn't give up power to either side of the plate. So it's not like you're looking at, oh, well, just load up on the lefties against him or load up on righties. Like it's more so you need him to make a mistake or be off his game because he's such a good ground ball pitcher. On the other side for Mats, he hasn't given up a lot of power to either side of the plate either. He gives up more production to righties as you would expect, which points you toward Horner, Suzuki, Happ at the top of the order. Morel's got power, but there's nothing specifically or no individual players that I think really stand out other than the best hitters on each team are the ones that you would like to get the most of, which goes without saying.
All right. Houston and Oakland. Let's go. Houston has the highest top stack probability by a mile, 28%, 26% aggregate ownership. So, about where you'd expect it to be here. I guess it's time to talk about JP France though, because, on the other side of this one, I'm also very interested to know where you're at. I'm actually more curious to know where you're at with Oakland than you are with Houston and JP France, but let's get this one out of the way. He's the second highest owned pitcher on the slate today against an Oakland team that just gives up monster performances to opposing arms all season long.
Yeah, and they're also now missing one of their only above average hitters in Ryan Noda. He broke his jaw. Josh and I had been speculating that he got in a locker room fight before yesterday's game, but unfortunately that apparently isn't what happened. He was in yesterday's lineup. He got scratched with a broken jaw, so I thought it was a very logical conclusion that he had gotten in a fight leading up to the game, but apparently he took a ground ball off of his face prior to the previous day's game, played the game with a broken jaw, hit a home run, and then now he's on the injured list. So Oakland's lineup is even weaker than usual. They do have Tyler Soderstrom up, who's their former, I believe, first-round pick, one of their better prospects, but it's a bad lineup. It's a good park to pitch in. JP France is not very good. He's struck out 17% of hitters this year, 4.59 xFIP, 1.27 home runs per 9, but the park helps. The matchup is as good as it's going to get. 242 expected ISO to righties, but there's just not really right-handed power anywhere in this lineup, and the park mitigates it anyway. He's a good pitching option. I did mention him earlier relative to Kyle Gibson that he's probably getting a little bit more ownership than he deserves, just because he projects a little bit better, or he projects better because of the matchup. Facing Oakland is obviously a lot better than facing Tampa Bay, but 33.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings compared to 26% for Gibson, yet getting more than double the ownership. I think it's a spot where you can certainly pivot. And that becomes more, I guess, appealing. This is another one where, like, on a slate of this size, everything goes hand in hand with what else you're doing. The more Tyler Glasnow you're playing, the more you probably should be taking chances on pitchers that are not JP France, like Kyle Gibson. If you're not playing a lot of Glasnow, you can afford to get to more France. So that's another spot where it's kind of goes hand in hand with what you're doing everywhere else. But he projects as the second best option behind, well, we have him slightly behind Stroman in terms of raw points, but from a value standpoint, you're saving $1,300 there. So he looks like the second best pitching option behind Glasnow.
How about your boy Hogan Harris? I know you said you were getting in the lineup simulator, the MLB simulator, you were getting a lot of positive ROI lineups that were looking towards Hogan Harris today, 5,500. The crazy thing is, though, highest leverage score of any pitcher on the slate.
He was in my Sims video earlier. He was my highest owned player, which I do not want to replicate itself. If it does, I'm going to just go with it because I can at least explain why it's happening. For one, he's only 5,500, so you're able to get to whatever bats you want. You're able to do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. He's only getting 11% ownership. We still have him with a 22% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher, 41.5% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. And I mentioned it earlier. He's the lowest projected pitcher on the slate, but we still have him projected for 11.5 DraftKings points. We only have him projected for 3 less DraftKings points than Marcus Stroman. So the only pitcher really separating today is Glasnow. You have a good park. You have a Houston lineup that's still shorthanded with no Alvarez, no Altuve. It's still a good lineup. They don't strike out a lot, at least at the top of the order. It's a dangerous lineup. They have a 5.1 implied run total. It's not likely that Harris has success, but it's a good park for pitching. And he's a breathing starting pitcher at 5,500 and 10% owned on a 3-game slate. It also has that negative leverage aspect, which on you'll see people bring it up on like an 8, 9, 10 game slate where it's like, oh, well, do you want to get to this pitcher more or this offense more because they're facing a popular pitcher? And the answer is, yeah, that's an added benefit. But on those larger slates, it's a lot easier for the middle to hit. And the chalk spot doesn't do great, but the opponent isn't necessarily the best play either. On a 3-game slate, that's not really the case. If Houston gets shut down, there's a very good chance Hogan Harris is a big piece of the slate because he's the one that shut them down. Just like if Tyler Glasnow has a bad game, there's a very good chance the Orioles are the winning stack because there's only so many spots to choose from. So that negative correlation with the most popular plays just becomes more important on a slate like this.
So we're almost there. Last one. Bats for this game. Houston and Oakland. Obviously, Houston grading out better than any other team. Oakland looking pretty rough in this spot, but JP France is popular. Are you getting a little weird here? Are you getting a little bit different? Or have you already gotten weird enough throughout?
Yeah, I think I'm already weird enough. The A's are projected to go a little bit under-owned. The problem I have here is just when you think about it in terms of just breaking a slate open, and your 2 options are the Orioles or the A's at similar ownership. Yes, it's obviously a better matchup for the A's against France than the Orioles against Glasnow. But, when we talked about the Orioles, you just run through that lineup and it's just guys that are well above average hitters. And then you get to the A's and it's a bunch of guys that can't do shit. The other thing, though, is that France has given up a lot of power to righties this year. He's held lefties to a sub 100 expected ISO and a 263 expected WOBA. The hitters that I would actually want to get to on the A's are JJ Bleday, Seth Brown, and Tyler Soderstrom. They're all left-handed. So not to say they can't have success here, but France has been exceptional against left-handed hitters this year, which is, another just reason to like France, but also to dislike the A's. So they're perfectly fine in the sense that they're cheap, they're low-owned. If you are going to Glasnow, you probably should be getting a good amount of A's along with him. But for me, as long as I'm getting to the Orioles, I don't need to get to the A's as much. On the other side, Houston is the top projected stack. It's not really close. 28% chance of being the top stack. Their highest in stack score, 26% aggregate ownership. But it just comes back to they're basically the Tyler Glasnow of offenses here, where if you want to feel good about yourself, play a bunch of Houston. You can watch your fantasy points pile up a high percentage of the time. And then maybe if you get really, really lucky and edge out, the 5,000 other people that stacked Houston, you can win. But in terms of payoffs and profitability, you're creating an easier path to first place when things go right by probably not getting to as much Houston as the field.
Steve Sand said Adam's spitting fire right now. It made me think that people tune in excuse me. People tune in less on shorter slates sometimes. Really makes you think that overall they're almost more valuable than the larger slate conversations.
I was kind of thinking it earlier, so I posted that Sims video, and I had said earlier in the show that I think it's probably the most in-depth strategy-wise I've done on one of those videos because it was there to talk about. And I was looking at the analytics and like the view count, or not the view count, but the retention was worse on this one than normal. And I was like, all right, well, what did I do different? And it was like, oh, I was actually talking strategy instead of just like naming off good plays. And so it was like, to me, that's a lot more valuable than me telling you what, like me reciting the best plays, but teach their own.
Hey, appreciate you guys watching. While we flip this over, Jordan's going to do so. Eric and Greg coming up next. Take 5 minutes. Click the link in the description. Sign up on Prize Picks. You're getting all of our tools free. I mentioned earlier, you get 50% off. If you are in a Prize Picks eligible state, you're getting everything free for the entire month. Not a week, not just baseball. Everything for the entirety of the whole month is free. All of our tools, including the premium Discord, the MLB lineup generator, PJ lineup generator. All you got to do, sign up on Prize Picks. Plus, it's a sick place to play. They're giving you 100% deposit match bonus up to $100, which means you put 100 in, you got 200. You put 10 in, you got 20 now. You put 50 in, you got 100. And every single tool that we have on the site is free to you for the month. No reason not to do so if you're not there yet. If you've been on the fence, go over there, put some cards in. Go make some NFL season lineups, man. You go over there, start looking at them. You got passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards. Get stoked for the start of the season. Throw in a 6-pick flex play, 25x. Put a couple bucks on it. Not a lot because you got to wait throughout the year. Give a little something to sweat, get in the mood, or just get into some baseball action for tonight. Josh already has his picks out on the Odd Shopper channel, but our whole site, everything, not the lineup simulator, everything else free for the entire month when you sign up on Prize Picks. Plus, you're getting $100 free that you didn't have yesterday or 5 minutes ago. So take a couple of minutes while we're doing the break and flipping it over and sign up on Prize Picks and hit us up in Discord once you get your free month. Anyway, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafayette_D, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. You guys were fun today. Peace. Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct some of you wonderful people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame here, and also give away a whole bunch of free subscriptions to Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and all you got to do to get in on this fun, crowning achievement, gather the family around, say, honey, I'm in the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Come watch. They're about to announce my name. Go to stochastic.com/avatar. Download the Stochastic profile picture. Tweet your wins when you win at Stochastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted right here. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, you are in. Just like our friend Zach Skaggs, the ever elusive double win. Thank you to the crew and all the tools over at Stochastic. Not getting the free month, but representing Stochastic here. I can appreciate that. 2,250 here in the squeeze and the line drive. Shout out to Zach for a really nice day. And our friend Kenneth Malakar. I don't know what to say. I want to thank all you guys for all the good advice, not to mention all of you guys in chat. Great community of people. Finally, the Hall of Fame, 3rd out of 7,400, $1,000 for a boy who has supported the channel and the site for a long time now. Congrats, Kenneth. We love to see it. And Timmy, first off, Lafayette, I'm gonna be up here a lot now, so get it down. The TX is like a CH. So basically, Cha Kiang, listen, dude, I'm going to be doing this a lot as well, and I can assure you I will not get this down anytime soon, but congrats to Timmy. Love to see it. But, man, not a lot to most y'all, but I'm going to say this. I know nothing about golf, but making nice finishes goes to show you how it's getting done. Pay the man. $800 and a free month of Stochastic. Congrats, Timmy. I'm just kidding. Timmy Chakiang. And then how about Derby status or Perez status? Second day playing DFS, and I ship the $1 25K mini max for $2,500 and place second in the $3 MLB 20K moonshot for $1,000. All thanks to Stochastic and the guys there with the great insight and the MLB lineup generator. $4.48 for your first week. You know it. Link in the description, baby. Keith, I'm going to need a punch card at this rate. Yeah, he's been here. He's been up a lot lately. Keith, $300 in the 7,500 solo shot. Next up is Matt. Shout out to the team at Stochastic for helping me out last night. 350 win there in the 10K Wednesday MLB pinch hit. And we keep moving forward with David Colasanto. Almost hit a 4-figure payout twice in a week. I'll settle for second place and a $200 ROI Thanks again for the advice. Hell yeah, man. Second place out of 7,100 in the mini max. Take that all day long. And Nate Larson, not enough entries to qualify for the free month, but shout out to the lineup generator. 2 of the top spots. I've said it a million times, guys, whether it's high stakes, low stakes, we got you covered. Just like internet points or it's depletes. Not quite enough to retire early, but who needs that when there's the Stochastic Hall of Fame? See this $25 and $8.50 in the nickel $600 prize pool, first out of 14,000. But as long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and you're not chopping more than 3 ways, you're in. $120 free month. What better way to do it than that in some of these low stakes contests? Shout out to It's the Plates 99 and everybody else. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted, or welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at StochasticHOF and get that free month and get inducted every single Monday right here in the Hall of Fame.
What is happening, everybody? It's Thursday. We've got, listen, it's not the most appealing baseball slate in the world, but it's okay because for the next 40 minutes, Eric and I are still going to break it down. We're going to make fun of each other. We're going to take your guys' questions no matter what they are. So you got anything you want to ask us, add us in the Discord channel. If you got super chats, throw those into YouTube, and we'll be answering any of those questions that come across for us. But only 3 games to talk about. We are sponsored today by Prize Picks. And if you guys want to go ahead and sign up over at Prize Picks, a couple reasons to do it. First of all, you're going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. So stuff like our lineup generator, player projections, ownership projections, you get access to all of that for free if you sign up at Prize Picks using the link that we have below. But most importantly, Eric, what is happening? I was about to say what is happening, and then I was even more confused about what's happening because it seems like there's something going on over there.
Yeah, somebody just dropped a bunch of packages off at the door, and Duke woke up. Yeah, I could hear thud outside from the packages, and we have boxes everywhere. We are living in squalor at the moment. It's just getting everything set to move. We got the house. It's official. We move in on next Tuesday.
Imagine how afraid a UPS driver would be if you open the door and you let your bear of a dog just have at him. This just 100-pound monster of a dog running headfirst into his ball sack.
Yep, it would be. And Jordan Klein can verify. I wasn't joking. My dog sprints directly at ball sacks. He just runs directly at them head first and hits you. And you'll be jarred the first couple. Jordan, can I get the amen? Or no, he disappeared. He's taking a shit.
Yeah, he's having issues. So he was taking not really taking off on us, but Actually, I don't even know how to explain why this makes a difference, but he did say that if there's lag, he was going to put up this on screen. I don't know how that was supposed to help us, though.
It's really not helpful, actually.
Yeah, we wanted to hear more from Jordan about how Duke runs into his balls.
It happens. It's a thing that happens. It's true. Yep.
All right. Well, Jordan came back just to nod and let us know that he does agree. So, yeah, a little bit of lag here, which probably because it's only a 3-game baseball slate. So Zoom was not prepared for us to be doing, a normal couple hours here talking about the baseball slate. Did you play the early one by chance?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Nope. I just bet money and lost money. It was fun.
All right. Well, we are going to have the opportunity to maybe recoup some of that, particularly over on Prize Picks. Are you playing on Prize Picks at all tonight?
I am playing on Prize Picks tonight.
All right. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we get going. We'll look at Bet Pro, and but of course, as per usual, we're going to be talking about the DFS slate. And it's only 3 games. There aren't exactly the most plentiful of options, but let's start by talking about it from a DraftKings perspective, the pitchers. Then we'll look at them on FanDuel as well. And where we should start is with Tyler Glasnow, who honestly, we only have a handful of pitchers. He's by far the most popular, and he's projected for 55% ownership on DraftKings, Eric. Or sorry, I should say 72% ownership on DraftKings. I was looking at our top 2 percentage odds. But then there is not a single other pitcher really projected for anywhere close to his amount of ownership. We got 40% for JP France, 32% for Marcus Stroman, 28% for Steven Matz. So there's such a big drop-off after you get past Tyler Glasnow. So how are you going to approach him in large field tournaments when he is so popular on a small slate?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of what Adam said towards the tail. It was kind of middle tail end of last show. And I 100% agree with it. It just kind of depends on what you're going to be doing with the rest of your lineup. If you're building out 3 lineups like me, if you're building out 20 lineups in a 20 max, if you're building 150, it's all going to be relative to what else you plan to do, because I don't think there's any question that Tyler Glasnow is the best fantasy pitcher going on today's slate. He's just unequivocally the guy with the highest upside, the K rate, the stuff in general. I also expect him, as he starts to just acclimate again after Tommy John surgery into whatever else half of the sticky substance issue that he had last year, getting adjusted to it or getting adjusted to playing without it. He's just going to get better and better and better. He has a 48.2% hard hit percentage. I don't expect that to continue. A 466 expected slugging, that's pretty high as well. But a 35.1% K rate, 17% barrel percentage also is going to come down, crashing back to earth. So overall, I think this is yet to come for Tyler Glasnow. He is definitely the one pitcher that you could feel comfortable clicking into your lineup. But I think if you're playing a lot of lineups, I would be more inclined to try to find ways underneath the field to guys like Marcus Stroman, to guys like, again, Hogan Harris. I'm playing today and I'm a sick person, but it is what it is. I like the idea of just being aware of what else you have in your lineup so that you're not just playing Glasnow plus top stacks, moving on with your day.
Are you willing on this slate to play a certain amount of hitters against your pitcher? And if so, is it 0, 1, 2? Like what are you comfortable with?
Two, I would be actually comfortable with on a 3-game slate. Usually it's right around 1. Usually I'm going to have just the 1 off here, but I think Tyler Glasnow is the perfect example of somebody that I think you could go to 2 on. There's stolen base upside. He doesn't hold runners very well. He also gives up tons of power here at the moment. 48.2% hard hit percentage, 466 expected slugging. There's definitely some bats, whether it's Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, Ryan O'Hearn in this iteration of him, even Aaron Hicks. There's guys that have enough pop where those solo shots can do a lot for you. And if you end up running into a low scoring slate, you run into a solo shot and Glasnow wins, a 3-2 decision or something like that, you could be in a really good spot come this evening.
So I like on a projection standpoint, if I'm picking one pitcher today, it's pretty clearly Tyler Glasnow, but I'm going to tell you why I like coming underweight to the field on Glasnow, and why also, if I was only playing one lineup today, it actually would be a Baltimore Orioles stack. It has to do a lot with what you just said about Glasnow and how you think as the season goes, he's going to get more acclimated. I agree with you, but the reality is right now, he's striking out a ton of hitters. The upside is apparent. He's also giving up a lot of hard contact, which you also highlighted on. And he's also, in totality, not pitching all that well. He has a 3.78 ERA, but a 4.68 expected ERA. He's walking a bunch of guys. His ground ball rate, solid at 45%, but a 20.5% home run to fly ball rate. And that's actually not that far out of line with what we've seen from over the course of his career. He's always been a guy that has an above average home run to fly ball rate. And just given some of his struggles this year to this point, by the way, also coming off of a major surgery and injuries, his velocity is down this year. It's at 96.3. The last time we saw Tyler Glasnow pitching, his average fastball velocity was 97.6 miles per hour. He's definitely lost a little bit of steam off his fastball. Long term, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be a great upside pitcher. But on a 3-game slate where ownership matters a lot more than normal, I really like the idea of coming underweight to the field on Glasnow, stacking against him. It's just the easiest way to get different, and not just different for the sake of getting different. You look at his numbers, and this is just not an ace caliber pitcher today to this point. Doesn't mean he won't be a week from now. Doesn't mean he won't be 2 weeks from now. But at least from what we've seen out of Glasnow so far, this is a pitcher who could get hit and could get hit hard.
Agreed. There's nothing that I can really add to it. I mean, it truly is a easy scenario to see him striking out 9 and giving up 4 runs. Like, that's a thing that I can see. Obviously, though, I think it's more unlikely 4. I mean, he's the over, I think, on 3 runs was at like minus 128 over on FanDuel, which is pretty wild for this game and not indicative of what Glasnow's been so far to this point. But I do expect him to positively regress. I do expect a lot of that before today's slate. Makes all the sense in all the land to have some Baltimore.
And now let's talk about some of the other pitchers, because it's not fair to me to just say, hey, I want to come underweight to the field on Tyler Glasnow, not offer an alternative, because he's projected for 72% ownership. You look at other guys like Marcus Stroman, JP France. I gravitate more towards France in the next tier of pitchers relative to their ownership. France, is going to be popular, projected for 40% ownership, but you've kind of got Marcus Stroman in the same ballpark. Stroman is such a more difficult matchup. He's going to be pitching against the St. Louis Cardinals. France is on the road in a pitcher-friendly park against Oakland. Oakland is Oakland, so they're terrible. So JP France, not necessarily that he's my favorite pitcher in the world, but on this slate, modestly priced over on DraftKings at 8K. We have to roster 2 pitchers. He's got the good matchup. And also, if this is any consolation, Oakland does have the lowest implied team total of any team on the entire slate also. So JP France is actually my favorite pitcher to get to overall, all things being considered, price point, matchup, the ownership. Is it the same for you, or do you look at somebody else?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking more at Marcus Stroman than you. I don't think salary is all that prohibitive today. I think Marcus Stroman against St. Louis, sure, St. Louis is good. Their lineup continues to be good. Their starting pitching is very, very bad. That's their problem. But a 111 WRC plus against right-handed pitching and just a 21.3% K rate. I also know that Marcus Stroman, his BABIP is off the chain this season. I broke it down over on Lindy's Locks update. I'm still going to be backing him, though, despite a 251 BABIP, which has to negatively regress. Like, it's got to come up from that kind of a number. But he's got a 3.71 xFIP, 3.39 FIP, 3.73 expected ERA. I think this is more of a run prevention, pitching deep into games. And this ground ball rate is just, I mean, it's lovely. 58.4% now on the season, just a 3.6% barrel percentage. This is one of the best iterations of a very good real life pitcher, Marcus Stroman, that we've seen in quite some time. Since probably his 2015 season. I think that getting 6 2/3, maybe 7 innings isn't completely out of the question here. Wind blowing straight across in Wrigley, maybe a tiny bit in from the left, 10 to 15 miles per hour. I think overall the conditions are pretty favorable for him, for Steven Matz in this spot as well. On the other side of this, who has a BABIP that's on the other side of the example, north of 330 on the season. So I like pitchers in this game specifically. I think they're going a little bit underutilized in the top pitchers tool. Marcus Stroman, 2.8% leverage going his direction. And it's a more comfortable roster than Kyle Gibson. And I am clicking on Hogan Harris's name because I'm a sick person. So Marcus Stroman, probably my favorite other than Glasnow.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, for me, JP France. I understand the case for Stroman as well. And listen, if I want to come underweight to the field on Glasnow, there's only so many other options that we could point to. We'll talk to the really, really low-owned options in a second. But first, we did get a super chat from Jose Morales. Jose is asking us for our favorite DK tiers options. So I just ran lineups for DK tiers after I saw you ask that question. I hadn't done it before the show just because there aren't contests, at least I should say, there are not big GPPs posted for tiers. So I didn't think we were going to get any questions about it, but got you covered here. Ran some lineups. I don't know if you did or not, Eric, but if not, I'll just read off some of the
Go ahead and read it off. Yeah, read it off.
All right. So tier 1, I am going with Wander Franco as the guy I got to the most in tier 1. Tier 2, Kyle Tucker. Tier 3, Cody Bellinger. Again, we talked about Cody Bellinger yesterday, and Bellinger, somebody who's been on a little bit of a heater as of late. Tier 4, I've got Mauricio Dubon. Tier 5, Jose Abreu. And then tier 6, Seiya Suzuki. So the primary stacking options we're looking at in tiers here are the Cubs and the Astros to me. Those are the 2 teams I like attacking as far as tiers goes. Thank you very much for the super chat, Jose. And then we also got a question in Discord from Gang Green. He wanted to know who he liked for tiers. So that also answers the question we got there from Gang Green. So I hope that helps you guys build out your tiers lineups. I don't know what contest is you're playing in because there's no tournaments, but maybe you guys are playing some tiers cash games or something for today. Anyway, let's talk about the relatively contrarian pitching options anyway, Eric, because we have 20% ownership going to, let me pull it. Here we go. So we got a 28% ownership going to Steven Matz, 17% to Kyle Gibson, and then 11% to Hogan Harris. So of the 3, we'll say less heralded pitching options on the slate, what is your preference of the bottom feeders?
The bottom feeders? It would be Hogan Harris 1, Steven Matz 2, Kyle Gibson 3. Would you like me to expand upon it?
No, and so I'm going to assume your reasoning for also when I run my lineups through the Sims tool that we have here. And really also, if you just look at our top pitchers tool, the most positively leveraged pitcher we have on the entire slate is Hogan Harris. It's not because Hogan Harris is good. It's not because he's in a good matchup. It's not because, the Astros are a team that's a bad offense, so they strike out a lot. It's really just because Hogan Harris is super cheap today. And he's also just way lower owned than these other pitchers. Like even, Kyle Gibson, 17% owned, Steven Matz, 28%. One of the easier ways to differentiate is just playing Hogan Harris at 11% ownership, and you just hope he doesn't suck. Yep. Like that's really the way you approach it. It's like, hey, if Hogan Harris doesn't suck, a couple of things happen. Number 1, he's knocking off a chalky offense in the Houston Astros. Number 2, also, you're probably getting yourself a decent value there. I have zero confidence in Hogan Harris. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's in a good matchup, but ownership reigns supreme on these 2, 3, 4 game MLB slates. That's the only reason I like Hogan Harris. Is it the same for you, or do you have actual reason to think that he might be decent?
Nope, completely with you. And this is where you just play leverage. You just simply look at your lineups and see what other people are doing and try to do something different. And it's just a game theory thing for me, where you see the top stack on the board is Houston by a pretty wide margin. And on these short slates, something that's definitely been happening more and more, especially because I'm playing some small field 3 max stuff, playing in some things where I think that ownership becomes accentuated. Houston could end up being 40-ish% in terms of ownership share. And if they don't completely smash, what's the most likely scenario? Hogan Harris doesn't get smashed. And so is it something that I still think is pretty likely to happen? Yes, but that's not how you play DFS. That's not how I've ever played DFS, where I said, hey, I'm smarter than everybody. I'm Sean V. I know exactly what is going to happen straight through and through. And I know exactly the range of outcomes. I know exactly who's going to go off and who's not. And that's why I'm a billionaire living on an island. No, that's not what it is. I think Hogan Harris is not good. He's a 19.2% K rate. It's a decent enough ballpark. He's a lefty going up against a Houston team that's just going to throw out all righties here. And you're just praying that somehow he mows down a couple extra and doesn't get completely shelled. He gives me access to Tampa Bay and Baltimore combinations that you can't really get to. St. Louis getting to like a Paul Goldschmidt and a Nolan Arenado that are going to be under-owned relative to their ownership and their top batters tool percentage. So I am feeling not good about it, but I definitely think it's the right way to go about this slate for me.
Did you just admit to being Sean V?
No, I was making an example as if I were Sean V. Shut up.
I think Sean V is a burner account run by Eric Lindquist.
Yeah, it's me.
Eric watches all of our shows. He comments.
Terrible take, Eric. Terrible take. Oh,
that's Eric's inner monologue, because he's so self-hating that we go through these shows. He says something and goes, I better go into chat and call myself an idiot. We're on to you. I know what you're up to when you're not doing impressions. You're making fun of yourself.
Imagine paying 6,100 for Franco.
Yeah, but once again, there's no price. There's no pricing in tiers. There's no pricing in tiers. Doesn't matter. He's my favorite option in tier 1. It is what it is. Let's talk about the FanDuel slate. Do you feel any differently about some of the other pitchers here? Because what is going to look different in FanDuel is you have so much ownership going to Glass now on a single pitcher site that he is right around 60% owned. And then everybody else is contrarian. Marcus Stroman, 13%. JP France, 16%. Then you got Kyle Gibson at 4%. Steven Matz at 5%. Hogan Harris, 2% over on FanDuel. If you're playing one lineup on FanDuel, Eric, which pitcher would you go to, considering the ownership is a little bit different looking over there on a single pitcher site?
Yeah, it's going to be Marcus Stroman for me there. Once again, I think he has the best chance of pitching deeper into the game. You get the quality start bonus, you get the win bonus where, I think that this is still a pretty decent spot. Now, you look at the implied total for both him and St. Louis, you're looking at 4.6 in our projections for each of them. It's a very difficult spot, but again, Glass now nearly 60%. I think if I had to be taking a shot on anybody else, I'll just go to the guy that I think is the next most likely to get that quality start bonus, and that would be Marcus Stroman by a pretty considerable margin.
Just relative to the ownership over on FanDuel, a couple of pitchers I like for tournaments. One is going to be Steven Matz, just because he's so cheap over on FanDuel. Matz is the cheapest pitcher on the FanDuel side. He's even cheaper than Hogan Harris. I do have a bet today that I posted in our chalkboard channel actually earlier in the day. It was Steven Matz under 5.5 strikeouts. I'm not exactly sure where that line is at the moment, but it seemed like a fairly decent strikeout prop, or a high strikeout prop, I should say, for a pitcher who, has just been inconsistent. I don't know exactly how deep he's going to go into the game, but only 5% ownership for him today. That is something I could still get behind. The other one too is going to be Kyle Gibson. Here is why. Kyle Gibson, also cheap on FanDuel, $7,600. But if on the off chance you get a win out of Kyle Gibson, there is so much leverage to be had. This is something that to an extent matters on DraftKings, matters so much more on FanDuel, stuff like the win bonus, the quality start bonus. If the Orioles beat the Rays today, there's such a big advantage to having Kyle Gibson in lineups instead of Tyler Glass now. So with Gibson being 4% owned and Glass now being 60%, I really like that leverage option over on FanDuel going to Kyle Gibson. And once again, a lot of this is not due to my expectations of how players are going to perform today. It just has to do with the massive difference in the ownerships, which becomes way more prominent on a 3-game type slate. Are you okay with Kyle Gibson over on FanDuel?
I'm okay with him over on FanDuel. He's my least favorite for DraftKings purposes. With Houston getting as much ownership as they're getting, I'm going to Hogan Harris. And then I do really like getting to Tampa Bay bats as well for FanDuel purposes. Doesn't look, I'm finishing up my FanDuel stuff. Doesn't look like I would be getting to as much of them here, but yeah, Kyle Gibson, if I were playing 150 right now, Kyle Gibson would show up in 8% of lineups. So I'd be fine with that. For me, Marcus Stroman would be the guy who definitely I would be getting well above the field on, underneath a little bit on Tyler Glass now. Also, just be aware, you can play Tyler Glass now on FanDuel. You're just not going to play Houston more than likely with them. You're just overlapping with so many lineups. It's going to be a very difficult thing for me to want to do with the way that I build lineups. And not saying you can't do it, that there aren't ways to do it, but I would be very inclined to not play Glass now with Houston tonight on FanDuel.
Anything else you want to bring up at pitcher? We've already talked about all of them, so I assume the answer is no, but anything else you want to talk about here?
Yeah, Steven Matz, just to throw this out there, he's not good by any means, but he has been very unlucky this season. He's got a 345 BABIP. That's out of control. 47.2% ground ball rate. It's gone up 9% this season, and his BABIP is just out of control. Has a 3.93 xFIP, and this is a Cubs lineup that obviously has some of that righty pop that you might be looking for against a guy like Matz, but at the same time, there are strikeouts that are available to you in this Cubs lineup. So I'm not going to be going out of my way to get to tons of him, but a 24.9% K percentage on the aggregate for this Cubs lineup, that would be 6th highest in baseball, accordingly over on FanGraphs. So I could get to a little bit more of Matz, but I'm only playing 3 lineups on DK and on FanDuel not playing, but built out those lineups. Matz would be a guy that if I got outside of like the 10 lineups, I would really want to probably get to a little bit more of, although it's not a comfortable roster.
So let's go ahead and start looking at some bets we might like for today, or anything that stands out to you on Prize Picks, because sponsor the show today, Prize Picks. You guys want to sign up, link below. $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. But also, let's try to find the people some props that we like for Prize Picks. Maybe they could build a power play or a flex play out. Eric, I know you said that you were playing a little bit on Prize Picks today. What are some of the lines that stood out to you?
Over on Prize Picks, I absolutely love the Marcus Stroman 30.5 pitcher fantasy score. I like more than that. I haven't projected for well north of that for FanDuel purposes, and that is going to be what you're running into over there on the old Prize Picks. So he was the first click that I really like to get to. And then there's hitter strikeouts, which I thought was a pretty fascinating one to be going through specifically. You have Jordan Diaz there against JP France. I also like the under of JP France. We're talking 5.5 strikeouts at books. It's a 5 line over on Prize Picks. That's a completely different type of situation, probably a stay away there for me. But one guy there in Jordan Diaz, I think that would be an all right guy to take more on 0.5 strikeouts overall, 22.6% K rate, and it goes up a little bit against righties. So Jordan Diaz, I'd be all right batting third there, taking more. He'll see a number of at-bats, number of opportunities for that to work out for you.
Yeah, so I'm going ahead and looking at some of the lines that are available on Prize Picks via our Pick'em Pro tool, which, by the way, if you guys want to sign up for Pick'em Pro, link below, 50% off the first time you sign up. So this is something typically costs less than $10. Sign up for the first time, get access to it for less than $5. For tonight, only 3 games. So it's not like we're seeing a crazy amount of high win percentage props that are popping up here. But, you know, when you're earlier in the day and you got your typical 9, 10, 11, 12 game baseball slates, there's usually a bunch of them that are popping up here. One that I do want to talk about, mainly because I like it at sportsbooks, is Tyler Glasnow. His over-under at FanDuel is 8.5 strikeouts, and I actually like the under there a good amount. He's made 9 starts this year. He's had under that in 7 out of the 9. He is a pitcher who's also been blow-up prone. And something else, too, about Glasnow that kind of stands out is with all of his walk issues this year, he isn't pitching especially deep into games, which just makes it all the more harder for him to rack up a ton of strikeouts. So per inning, yeah, he generates a bunch of strikeouts, but for the year, he's never pitched deeper than 6 innings this season. He's only made it to the 6th inning twice the entire season. And he did have a couple of good strikeout outings against the Mariners and the Royals, but still, last time out, 7 strikeouts against the Royals. And overall for the year, like I was saying before, 7 out of 9 starts, he had 8 or less strikeouts. So we project the under for Tyler Glasnow to hit a little more often than the over. I do prefer to traditional sports books where the line is 8.5. But with this being a shorter slate, if I absolutely had to pick something to fill out for somebody's card, I would say under 8 strikeouts for Tyler Glasnow. And then another one, too, that I mentioned in passing before at sportsbooks, I like under 5.5 strikeouts for Steven Matz. Anything else you want to talk about as far as Prize Picks goes, Eric?
Nope. It's 3 games. Don't go completely nuts. Always remember correlation also matters. Yesterday or 2 days ago I had a card where I just kind of correlated a lot of the plays down the line. And of course, Taylor Ward ruins it. So 5 of 6 there. But the other ones were just easy W's where, you know, it was 2 guys who were back-to-back in the lineup. Somebody knocks in somebody else there. There aren't a lot of opportunities to do that. There's the Goldschmidt Arenado. I'm probably staying away from the 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs for them, but correlation, always something to be paying attention to in your Prize Picks cards.
So let's go ahead then and start talking about some of our favorite stacks for the day. And one more time, I'm going to remind you guys also, if you want to sign up for our Pick'em Pro package, it has projections for Prize Picks, for Underdog, and it's also available for less than $5 when you sign up for the first time using the link that we have below. So if you're playing on any of those sites and you want to get projections, here's a cheap way you can get access to the data we have over at Stochastic.com. Stacks. Let's start by talking about it this way. If you're only stacking one team today, and all things being considered, not the team you're expecting to score the most fantasy points, not the team you're expecting to hit the most home runs or score the most runs, relative to ownership, you're building one lineup. Which is the offense you would go to?
The Oakland Athletics.
One of the premier offenses in baseball. No
doubt. I heard
so,
they're the best one playing today, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And any size slate, really. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a 12-game slate, a 15-game slate. Safe bet is that the Oakland A's are the offense everybody's talking about. But why Oakland today?
Beep, bleep, blide, folks. It's going to be Brutal. JJ Bleday, Diaz, Brown. There's at least enough lefty pop in the middle of that lineup. Tyler Soderstrom as well. Zach Geloff, who's one of the better prospects in baseball, hasn't exactly been playing like it thus far in his big league career, but he's just 23 years of age. They're going up against JP France, who I think is an over-owned pitcher on this program. I'm playing a Hogan Harris in that main lineup as well. You've talked about this multiple times before as well, where if Hogan Harris does have an above average performance, and so does Oakland, and they put up a couple of runs above expectation, you're getting that win bonus. You're running into a lot of good correlating stuff. And again, they're the most under-owned offense on this slate by a wide margin. You have Baltimore that there's a little bit of leverage to be getting to, but all of the major leverage, again, 9.2% top stack percentage. That's not very much, but by far the most leveraged team to be getting to. Top value percentage, 36.6%. That's almost double. It's actually more than double the next team on the board, being Houston. They're so cheap. They're so easy to be able to play with a glass now, to be able to play with, if you're going to Marcus Stroman like me as well. It's just a team that, do I expect them to play well? No, but they would be the one team I would stack up in the first lineup.
I mentioned it a little bit at the top of the show, but people might not have heard it, or maybe you weren't watching all the way at the beginning. But for me, it's going to be the Baltimore Orioles. Tyler Glasnow is a pitcher who really has struggled this year in the ways that it is favorable for opposing offenses. Power, home runs being given up against him. He also doesn't typically work super deep into games, which you said before. If we were just playing who's going to score the most fantasy points today, you go play Tyler Glasnow, you go play the Houston Astros. But when we're considering the ownership angle, give me the Baltimore Orioles if I'm playing one lineup today. And also, it's a team that you're getting leverage off of. It's also a legitimately good offense. Like, I feel like Tyler Glasnow is owned as if he was the one pitching against the Oakland A's today.
Yep.
Right? Like, there's no way he could be higher than the close to 80% owned that he is. There's no other matchup he could be where he'd have higher ownership, and the Orioles have a legitimately good offense. Also, Baltimore is lower owned than Oakland today. These are the two lowest owned offenses by a really wide margin. They're the only two teams, not only with less than 10% ownership, they're the only two teams with less than 17% ownership. We've got Oakland as a team project for 8.9% aggregate ownership. We've got the Baltimore Orioles as a team project for 8.4% aggregate ownership. The next lowest is the Cardinals at 17.5% against Stroman. So if I'm really looking to be different, I think the easiest way to do it while also being reasonable is going to be stacking up the Baltimore Orioles against Tyler Glasnow. And just hope this isn't one of those games where Glasnow goes out and has 13, 14 strikeouts or anything like that. So Baltimore Orioles, I know you had also said, Eric, that you're advocating for being a little bit underweight to Tyler Glasnow, but how much Orioles stacks are you willing to get to, if any?
A lot. I have three lineups. I have one Oakland stack, one Baltimore stack, and one Cubs stack. What a time to be alive. I'm pretty much fading your two most popular offenses, being Houston. Tampa Bay's fallen down a little bit. Chicago's now a tiny bit more popular, but I'm playing a lot of those back half of the lineup guys. I mean, you get Morel in the 6-hole, Patrick Wisdom 7-hole. It just kind of makes sense to get to the lower owned pieces of it. Back half of the Cubs lineup, and I'm with you. I think that Baltimore, I mean, it's just a really difficult thing to click on to make happen when you know Glasnow has that kind of upside that he does. But I'm willing to lose today to just be contrarian. Like, I think that that's kind of the moral of the story on these short slates in MLB. If something has a 10% likelihood of happening, but only 5% of people do it, that's what I'm going to probably be gearing towards every single time on these kind of slates.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure people probably, if they look at ownership, there's a good chance they have a good sense for what it is, I might say, on a small slate, because it's kind of the same sort of theories and things that I'm always getting behind when we're talking about some of these teams and ownership on these slates. But now let's talk about the popular offenses. And we have to start with the Houston Astros, who are by far the most popular offense of the entire slate. They're the only team projected for north of 20% ownership, and they're projected for 26% ownership as a team, but still a little bit under-owned according to our top stacks tool. 26% ownership, but projected for a 28% chance to be a top stack. So what do you make of the spot the Houston Astros are in, when I know you did say you like Hogan Harris a little bit?
Like is the wrong word. I can tolerate and stomach and click the name of Hogan Harris. That's the thing that I'm able to do. Houston's going to be overowned, and especially in 3-max, especially in single entry, it's a very difficult offense for me to want to talk myself into getting to. DeBuan has had a above average year for him, but still brings about 0 power to the table. It's just a spot where you're looking for multiple hits. You're asking yourself to have certain outcomes that just aren't. Only 6 stolen bases and 312 at bats as well over the course of this season, not getting on as much in running in those kind of scenarios. Jeremy Pena against lefties, they move him up to the 2 hole, but otherwise he's had a pretty difficult season as is. So, I mean, you're 1-2, then it runs into Bregman, who's having a down year, Abreu, who's having a down year. You have Yanner Diaz. I've talked, I don't know how many times on this show about how his reverse splits are rather prominent. He's much better against righties than lefties. He's been buried to the 8 hole. It's a team that I look at for Houston. I know they're going to be the most popular on this slate. I have X'd them out as a result. I don't have a single batter other than on FanDuel, where I did end up building out a couple of lineups. I have one Kyle Tucker going up against Hogan Harris lineup. So take that for what you will. It means nothing. It's just because I wanted to have one off with Kyle Tucker in that spot, and that was the only way to do it. So I am shorting Houston in a very major way.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, this isn't the spot that I want to be underweight to a team, mostly because of, like I said, the top stacks. We still are rating them out as a team that, even though they're most popular on the slate, still being a little bit underowned. So I'm going to ask you then, if we're talking about these mid-range teams, the Cardinals, the Rays, the Cubs, let's do a fuck, marry, kill, Eric, because these teams are all pretty close in ownership. We've got the Cardinals.
Kill Sean V.
What? He's not one of the options.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You don't want to sex him, though?
Maybe.
It's yourself in chat.
I know.
You guys get... I'm just saying there's an angle where it could be fun. You guys don't like each other. Maybe he gets a little aggressive.
I definitely don't like myself, Greg. Pretty simple.
Cardinals, 17.5% owned. Rays, 18.8% owned. Cubs, 20.5%. Of these 3 teams, which one are you going to have dirty sex with? Which one are you going to marry? And which one are you going to kill of these 3 stacks?
Oh, I'm going to kill Houston. Can't spend a day with them anymore.
No. They're not one of the... It was the Cardinals, the Cubs, or the Rays.
Cardinals, Cubs, Rays. Okay. Cardinals, Cubs, Rays. I will marry the Cubs. They're adorable. I think they make very, very... they're exciting spouses. They hit for power. They bring, Cody Bellinger back to life. It's an exciting prospect of spending my life with them. I'm probably going to have dirty sex with Tampa Bay because overall they are a bunch of filthy animals who have overperformed, but overperforming can be fun, friends. And then we got to just go out of our way and straight up murder the St. Louis team because they have been a cesspool of broken dreams and sadness the world has never seen before. So how does that sound?
It's tough, right? Because at least in our data, the most over-owned of these teams is the Cubs. They have the least odds of being the top scoring team and the highest ownership. But then you also have to factor in stuff like the Rays are super expensive against Kyle Gibson today. Then you get the Cardinals. They're in a matchup against Marcus Stroman where they've got decent top stack odds here relative to their ownership, but at the same time too, Marcus Stroman, pretty heavy ground ball pitcher.
Do I make you Horner, baby? Do I?
I'm going to kill the Cubs mostly due to ownership.
Okay.
Going to kill the Cubs due to ownership. Most popular team, lowest top stack odds.
It's fair. I don't disagree entirely, but
I'm going to marry the... Oh boy, I don't want to marry any of these teams. I'll marry the Rays. I have a bunch of futures on the Rays. They've been kind to me so far this year. They're very expensive against Kyle Gibson. But I also do wonder if there's going to be, because of how exorbitant their price points are, maybe that means people might want to get off of them. We'll see. And then I'll absolutely just fuck the shit out of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh,
and I hate it.
Look at you being a dirty dog.
I hate it. But
dirty dog.
Sometimes, though, those are the chances that you have to take. You don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Herpes.
Gonorrhea. You don't know.
Death, sadness,
right?
destruction.
You don't know. These are the sort of things that I have to ask Adam how he deals with them. But Marcus Stroman, when you look at him this year, here's one thing at the very least. I do think that there's a point to be made that on these smaller slates, maybe sometimes you don't need all of the most upside in the world. It's only 3 games. It's very realistic that no team goes out and scores 7, 8, 9 runs or anything like that. At the very least, Marcus Stroman doesn't generate strikeouts. The ball gets put in play a lot against him. There is an opportunity for some bad BABIP luck to go his way. So far this year, he is a 251 BABIP, which I have to expect is going to regress. His career BABIP is 296. The 251 I don't view as sustainable. He has a 288 ERA, 3.73 expected ERA. I can't say I love the Cardinals, but relative to the other options in this mid-range, I do think they're the one that probably makes the most sense from a tournament perspective. So that's where I'm putting my wiener, Eric. Yes. All right. So there we go. Always weird ways that we could put little spins on this. We've only got about a minute to go left until lock, though. So, Eric, who's in the homer today? Who are we projecting to go yard?
I got a couple of them, but there are... let me pull up which one I had. JJ Bleday. JJ Bleday. Gonna go Yaya. Let's enjoy it.
I'm going to go Wander Franco just because they seem to... he seemed to upset Sean earlier in the show, but then also...
that's great reason.
But then also, he is my favorite guy for tier 1 for DK tiers. He's expensive. I think that's going to lower his ownership a little bit. I said I was going to marry the Tampa Bay Rays. Let's follow it up by picking Wander Franco to homer. Something also, Kyle Gibson's been a pitcher who's given up a lot of fly balls in the past. He's never been a heavy ground ball pitcher. Kyle Gibson, if you look at him over the course of the last few years, also somebody decently high home run to fly ball rates, 13.7% overall for his career. It's been the lowest of his career so far this season. I don't really buy into it, though, considering the long track record of Kyle Gibson being a pitcher who's had a home run to fly ball rate as high as 26.7%.
Yep.
So give me Wander Franco to hit a home run off of Kyle Gibson. And any further thoughts y'all on this little crappy 3-game slate, Eric?
Wander boy. Let's do it. This was fun. We got through it, baby. We got through a nice show on a 3-gamer. We can make it. I've realized that you and I can make anything fun, especially
herpes.
There we go. There, found it. Yeah.
People don't actually know this. The way that Adam first got gonorrhea was actually from a public toilet. People don't know that about him.
He was having sex on the toilet, but it's true. Yeah,
it is true. So anyway, guys, be careful when you use those public restrooms. If you haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with all your lineups. We'll be back here tomorrow with a full slate of baseball.